Being in St. Andrews, I mean, is almost indescribable. You have to be there to visit, to really understand why St. Andrews is so special. It's a collection of people that have lived there for hundreds or thousands of years, these families that have been so intimately intertwined with the founding of the game. And when you're there, you can't not feel the history of the game all around you. You think about all the elements that surround golf, and whether it's the wind and water and seaside and the smells, and everything you see, hear, and smell is reminiscent of the greatest things that the game is. I had about 1 year to complete it, so not a lot for something this substantive. I mean, it's 320 pages, there's roughly 100 people, you have dozens of emails with each person, and it starts with really getting to yes, right? First getting them to agree to be part of this big undertaking and trusting me with a story, and I've never published anything, I've never written anything. I mean, it's a big undertaking when you're going, all right, we've never done this before, but let's be super ambitious and try. And I think it turned out well. We worked really hard, and fortunately, it was really Arnold Palmer that led to it being possible. We had worked together on the St. Andrews 600, which was our big fundraising event for the University of St. Andrews for our 600th anniversary, and he had become our honorary chairman. I got to know one of his best friends, Howdy Giles, quite well, who was actually his dentist for about 30 years. They traveled the world together and were great friends, and really Howdy was his unofficial photographer. I think he has something like 250,000 photos of Mr. Palmer from traveling with him. And so it was that friendship and that bond of working together for the university that led to him being willing to be part of this book and undertaking itself. And so once Arnold Palmer says yes, I think everyone else feels much more comfortable with trusting you with at least one story that they could share. And so it's really that amalgamation of 100 stories. They're all different. Some we wrote ourselves and then edited. Some were co-written with the contributors. Some were written by the contributor themselves and not edited. Others were edited. They were all different. It was really whatever suited the person, whatever they wanted to do to tell their story is what we tried to facilitate. And so there's, again, a little more than 100 stories. There's hundreds of photographs and images. We curated all of the art. For example, the cover art is by a gentleman by the name of Michael Klein, who's a really close friend of mine. He's a world-renowned artist that actually is known as one of the greatest living floral painters, if not one of the greatest of all time. And so we grew up in the same town of Minot, North Dakota, and he is phenomenal. And so he did Swilken Bridge for me in a couple different varieties. Phenomenal artist, and so that's just one example of some of the art that you'll find in this book and the talent that surrounds it, thankfully, and people that, again, were willing to be part of this project. And so the book launched actually in 2015 at the Open Championship, which was the 144th playing of the Open at St. Andrews on the famed Old Course. And so that was always our goal, to launch there. And I was happy that we did. It was great to have that be Mr. Palmer's farewell to St. Andrews, and to be part of that and to see him there. He hadn't been well at the time, and to see him one more time in St. Andrews waving to the crowd and being the man himself, the king himself, was really special. And so I'm glad that we were able to do that. For Links to St. Andrews, those 100 contributors, nearly every one of them agreed to sign 100 copies of the book that were meant to be for charity. Basically, I had some handmade paper produced where we had grass infused into it from the Old Course, from Royal Liverpool Golf Club, Royal Dornick, and then Common Ground here in Colorado, which were just 4 of my favorite places in the game. From there, a friend and I, we traveled to every single person to have them sign 100 copies of this book. And so obviously you can't travel with 100 books. We had the 100 sheets of paper, and we traveled from person to person. So it started out with a 50-day trip around the U.S. We went from Denver to Houston, all along the southern coast, all the way up to Maine and back, collecting autographs, 1 per day. And so he was the designated driver, driving from place to place. I was doing all the logistics constantly. And it was a 50-day trip of fun and meeting people and really collecting more stories. And we did the same thing around the West Coast on 2 occasions. It was during the US Open, and so we started in Denver, went through Arizona, California, the length of California, Oregon, back down huge trip. So that, again, that was 2-3 week trips. And then we also did the same around the UK for about 45 days. And so just collecting all of those signatures was a massive undertaking. We've raised a little more than $500,000 for charity through this effort. My hope is that throughout 2021 and 2022 that we can maybe get close to doubling that by the end. We've auctioned off about 60 of them or so, 60 to 65. So we still have quite a few left. And again, I hope that we can have a huge effort as we push to the playing of the 150th Open Championship at St. Andrews on the Old Course next summer. And so that's really been special to see it have that impact on groups like the Evans Scholars or the First Tee, to name a couple, or the American Cancer Society or the Arnold and Winnie Palmer Foundation and their efforts for healthcare and youth healthcare. It's really been special. I definitely met all of my heroes, many of my heroes through this book. From Palmer to Player to Nicholas to Watson and Lorena Ochoa, Annika Sorenstam, and Gil Hands, Tom Doak, Ben Crenshaw, Jackie Burke. So many of the legends of the game that were willing to be part of this is really what makes it special. It's definitely a project that did not make sense. A massive undertaking by someone that has a passion for the game but's never put a book together or really written that much myself. It was important to have a great team, and I think that's what made it possible. From the designer, Carol Harrelson, her talent is exceptional. She's also an editor. Same thing for Carol Bauer. She was one of our editors and is fantastic. Help from Josh Wright, Lewi Bransky, the artist, who's phenomenal and a very close friend, Michael Klein. So many of these people, that's really what made the project possible, but also palatable and made it achievable where we could actually even finish it on time. And so when you get to spend time with some of your golfing heroes, there's nothing like it. For me, a couple of the favorite interviews, one was with Tom Watson, and we scheduled the time one afternoon, and to have your phone ring, you're anticipating all the interview questions that you've prepared and everything that you're about to experience, and sure enough, the phone rings. I was so nervous. He just goes, "Hi Josh, this is Tom Watson. I hear you want to talk St. Andrews." And golfing idols that I just got to talk to the game, talk to him about his love for St. Andrews and winning the Open as many times as he did. And it was really special. That was one really neat interview. Another one that was similar to that was with Ben Crenshaw. Just to spend any time talking golf with him. He is golf's historian in every way. He knows so much about history and architecture. You'd be hard-pressed to find a more enthusiastic historian than Ben Crenshaw. And so those for me were two very special ones. Perhaps the most special interview was with George H.W. Bush, past president, 41. He was remarkable just to be able to spend time with. So I traveled to visit him at their home in Kennebunkport, Maine. And it had been organized through a mutual friend, Ken Rayner, who was 41's longtime friend and golf pro at Cape Arundel. Wonderful old Walter Travis golf course that if you ever get the chance, go. It's phenomenal. And so when we finally found out the interview had been set, sure enough, I was very, very nervous the night before trying to prepare questions for a president to talk golf in the Walker Cup in St. Andrews. So we arrived, and the security guards had, of course, done their background research on me, and Ken and I were casually talking with them. They said, "All right, go ahead." So we're led into the compound to their home, and sure enough, we're driving up the path to their home, and we stopped to talk to the First Lady, Barbara. And she was just walking the dogs, and Ken and I stopped to have a casual chat, and she said, "The president's waiting for you in the sitting room near their bedroom." And so sure enough, we just go right in the door, and there's a couple ladies making cookies, and we go in, and sure enough, the president's sitting there in his seat watching a football game of some sort at the time, and he has his green golf pants on, and very JFK-ish, with his salmon pants that you'd see him on with his navy polo. He looked so stylish. He had this white collared shirt on that had Secret Service logo on it, the CIA. And he just goes, "I hear you want to talk St. Andrews and the Walker Cup as well. Have a seat." And so Ken and I and the president were able to sit there for maybe an hour, hour and a half, just talking about life, talking about the game, talking about a love of St. Andrews and the Walker Cup. And it was definitely the most unforgettable experience related to the book. Just hope that it was something that I could say thanks to the game for all the memories that I've enjoyed.